Hello and welcome to you. I'm Clive Myrie. I'm at the Cambridge Union building, just down the road from the Senate House, where that very lively and passionate debate took place over the last hour and a half. Passionate, as I say, a few fireworks as well. Theresa May didn't turn up, but Jeremy Corbyn was there. And the subject matter ranging from immigration to security to dealing with the crisis in housing, the problems that this country faces potentially at the moment. Let's get a flavour of some of the sparks that flew tonight. This is one exchange between Jeremy Corbyn and Amber Rudd, and they were discussing paying for social care.
We are a party who will always support those in most need. And the welfare bill for helping people on disabilities has gone up £7 billion in the past 7 years and is now at £50 billion. We will always provide that safety net where it's needed.
Amber, you tried to take personal independence payments away from people with disabilities, and then you churned yourselves around in a few days on that. You're not credible on this issue.
Jeremy, I know there is no extra payment you don't want to add to, no tax you don't want to rise. But the fact is we have to concentrate our resources on the people who need it most. And we have to stop thinking, as you do, that there's a magic money tree. You have to be accountable.
Just one of the highlights from the debate this evening. I'm pleased to say that Damian Green is with me. It's good to see you. Thanks for joining us from the Conservatives. We heard Tim Farron in his closing arguments there basically say that as far as Theresa May was concerned, she didn't care about the voters because she didn't bother turning up tonight. How do you answer that charge?
Oh, it's completely ridiculous. Like quite a lot of what Tim said during the course of the evening, what you saw tonight well illustrated the differences between the parties. You had Amber Rudd, calm, in control, realistic, discussing difficult issues in an adult way. And you saw what a Jeremy Corbyn government would be like, because although all the other parties, by and large, agreed on higher taxes, higher spending, more borrowing, higher immigration, they still disliked each other and squabbled. So that was the coalition of chaos made flesh. That is what a Jeremy Corbyn-led government would look like. And you could see that there's now a clear choice for the British people, which it faces them next week.
Right, OK. We're in the spin room here, and Emily Thornberry has just turned up for an impromptu chat as well. Yes, Jeremy Corbyn turned up here. The belief, perhaps, from those within the Labour Party is that that was a plus that put Theresa May completely on the back foot.
I just don't understand why she wasn't here. What's she afraid of? You know, and I have to say, I think to myself, if she can't get out and debate, how the hell can she be saying to the British public that she can negotiate? Why is she such a coward? Why didn't she come? Why didn't she come? Why would no? It's not ridiculous. But she ought to have a bit more respect for the British people.
And she has a lot of respect.
And they need to
she's meeting far more of them than Jeremy Corbyn is.
What was she doing tonight?
She's doing what she's done today. She's been in the West Country. She's done twice as many meetings. She's taken more questions from the public, more questions from journalists than Jeremy Corbyn ever does. He makes a speech to a momentum rally and then goes off. So Theresa May is engaging with real people. But we did see the choice this evening. You saw a Conservative government that calmly gets about taking difficult decisions sometimes, but making sure that we're in a good place for the Brexit negotiations.
Emily Thornberry.
I think that what we saw tonight was a Conservative Prime Minister hiding from the British people and not being prepared to come out and answer questions in the way that Jeremy Corbyn did. And Jeremy tonight was passionate and principled and prime ministerial. You have a choice. You can either have a Prime Minister like that, or you can have a Prime Minister who's hiding behind the curtains at number 10 and just switching on Bake Off.
Did he answer Amber Rudd's suggestion that there is some sort of magic money tree out there? That is going to pay for all your policies that you've got in your manifesto?
We have a fully costed manifesto. We have
how much are you going to pay for the energy industry?
Do tell me.
How much
how many
borrowing
numbers are there in your manifesto, apart from page numbers? I mean, you haven't. You're so arrogant. You're not even going to pretend that you're going to cost your. You just said, trust us. We're the Conservatives. We're the current government. Trust us and trust Theresa. No, they do not take the public for granted. You get out there and you argue and you fight your corner, because it is really worth having a decent government and one that's prepared to answer questions.
But your magic money tree, if you read your costings document, it doesn't include any money at all to buy the energy industry, to buy the railways, to buy the national grid, to buy the water industry. All of that you say, oh, that'll come from borrowing, but it doesn't count as borrowing because we'll be able to pay the borrowing back. That is the most economically illiterate thing any major party has put forward, probably since Labour's 1983
All I can
manifesto.
say to you is IFS. The IFS said that we had a fully costed manifesto, and they have said that we are going to put a pound for every pound we put in, we increase the economy. And what are you suggesting? You are just suggesting more austerity. We've had it for 7 years, and that's all you promise is more pain to the British people. Another 10 years, another 15 years, more austerity, no ideas.
We can show that we've got the lowest unemployment since the 1970s because of the responsible economic decisions that we've taken. We've shown we've been able to introduce the national living wage. We've been able to take 4 million people out of tax altogether at the bottom end. We are helping people at the bottom end. You would have higher taxes, higher borrowing. Every Labour government has left office with unemployment higher than when it took office. A Jeremy Corbyn government would multiply that.
Why is it that living standards now are lower than they were before the recession started? People cannot pay their bills, and you have no plans for how the country is going to get a pay rise.
The best route out of poverty is work. We have got more people in work than any government. There are 3% of the people that work in this country on 0 hours contracts. Of that 3%, the average hours they work is 25 hours, and the number of people on 0 hours contracts who are happy with the hours they're working is 70%. Those are the facts. I know Labour has difficulty with figures.
We have nurses going to food banks. I can tell you about food banks and people not being able to put food on the table, and that is under your watch. And you have no answer to this.
Like all previous Labour governments, you would destroy the British economy. You would spend too much,
you would
tax too much. I'm going to have to come in there. I'll let you talk enough between you. Emily Thornberry, Damien Green, thanks very much indeed. Emily Thornberry there, talking about food banks. There was a good exchange in the debate involving Jeremy Corbyn, speaking about that very issue.
I would just say this, since Amber Rudd seems so confident that this is a country at ease with itself. Have you been to a food bank? Have you seen people sleeping around our stations? Have you seen the level?
Jeremy, I need
have you seen the levels of poverty that exist because of your government's conscious decisions on benefits?
Jeremy, if you want, if you out of food banks, way to have people not using food banks.
There's two of you coming at me now. I'm not sure which I'm going to take.
That they can have
Another powerful exchange there. Let's talk to Baroness Sal Brinton of the Liberal Democrats. Thanks for joining us. It's good to see you. Tim Farron had to reach out today, no question about that. Do you think he did that?
I think he smashed it out of the park. He did really well. He got applause on a significant number of the policies, principles and values that he and the Lib Dems stand for, and he made it absolutely clear that we're the ones providing real opposition to the Conservatives at the moment. If this election has been called about Brexit, Labour just handed Theresa May a blank cheque.
But he did seem to come unstuck on the amount of money that was being put forward in your manifesto for the NHS. £6 billion, drop in the ocean by all accounts.
As he said, that's the initial funding. We're waiting for the independent commission to come through to talk about how we fund health and social care in the future. We know that that needs to be tackled properly. The Conservatives' dementia tax is not the way to do it. It goes against all the advice of the Dilnot Commission, which reported 5 years ago. We supported that then. It needs to be updated. That's why the Lib Dems are providing that extra penny for NHS and for social care until we get the results of that commission, and as a country we can take the proper way forward.
Yeah, I'm just being told that we're actually showing live pictures of Jeremy Corbyn leaving the venue here in Cambridge. His decision to turn up here was taken at lunchtime, apparently. He'd made it clear in the run-up to tonight that he was not going to come here if Theresa May didn't herself show up. She's always made it clear that she wasn't going to be here, but Jeremy Corbyn, perhaps buoyed by the success of his campaign so far and the tightening of the polls over the last few days and weeks, decided that he would turn up here and face the audience questions. About 130 people picked from all socio-economic groups representing all political views in the hall here in Cambridge this evening. Finally, Baroness, the fact of the matter is, the Liberal Democrats, the surge that a lot of people were hoping for within the party, particularly after the Brexit vote and the promise within your manifesto of a second referendum on any deal, has that really got any traction? Has it really sunk in with the people so far?
We're in absolutely no doubt that the surge is happening in our strongest seats. And it absolutely echoes the by-election victories that we've had over the last 18 months, really going well. But I would agree that obviously there hasn't been a surge across the country. However, I think that people will be pleasantly surprised by the number of seats that we win in a week's time.
All right. Baroness Stal-Brinton, thanks. It's good to see you. Thanks very much indeed. As I say, it's been a lively debate and one hot-button issue throughout the campaign. Tonight has certainly been immigration. Let's hear part of an exchange on that issue.
UKIP has just claimed that people voted to leave the European Union, and in so doing, they also voted to curb immigration. I don't think we can read that into the result. Some people may well have voted to curb immigration, but there was only one question on the ballot paper, and immigration wasn't on it. And I'm afraid that UKIP keep using this issue. They want to whip up people's hatred, division and fear, and that's why they talk about immigration all the time.
I've got to come back now. Right.
Stop lying about immigration.
Listen. This isn't about immigrants. It's about government policy. And the government have got it wrong time and time again. Amber, for example, her party have said in 3 manifestos now that they're going to get immigration down to the tens of thousands. You know, it's Jackanory. It's not going to happen. Jeremy won't give you a figure because under Labour, immigration will go up. There's only one party on this platform tonight who will see real cuts of immigration, which is, by the way, is what the majority of British people want.
We've seen
poll after poll shows it time and time again.
From the Nuffield study, that you're looking at £1 billion additional cost to our National Health Service because the government's bungling of the deal with Europe, which means that you'll have thousands of pensioners from Europe, British pensioners, returning to the United Kingdom.
Can I just say, I think this debate shames and demeans us all. I don't think there's anyone in this room or anybody watching this debate from Cornwall to Caithness who does not understand the positive contribution that people have made to this land who've come from the rest of Europe and the rest of the world. And demonising those people is totally unacceptable.
Pretty heated exchange there on immigration. Let's talk to Peter Whittle here from UKIP. It's good to see you, Peter. Thanks for joining us. We just heard a little bit of a clip there of Paul Nuttall and Angus Robertson suggesting that the debate about immigration has actually shamed the country and is firmly putting the blame for that at the door of UKIP.
Well, that is unbelievable, monstrous and ridiculous. The fact is that this is a subject which is probably at top of most people's concern, has been for a very long time. It doesn't mean that people are racist. What he's actually saying by that is somehow rather trying to close down the debate yet again. What I thought was interesting about tonight was the fact that Paul Nuttall was the only one of the leaders there actually talking in a constructive way about how we get managed migration. Everybody else just fell on him. And then they wonder why people are disengaged, if you like, from other parties, because the fact is none of them will actually even look at this issue seriously.
But the suggestion is that you have completely underestimated the importance economically of immigration to this country, and that the idea that you want an Australia-based point system that they use down there, that wouldn't fit this country because they want much more immigration into Australia. That just wouldn't work for the UK.
No, but that is the beauty of a point system for a start. You actually work out what you need and what you want with the point system. But the fact is really is that they're just using that as an excuse. They don't want any discussion on this issue, right? Labour wants open borders. The Greens want open borders. Ideologically, they do. The Tories have no will and certainly have no desire or possible intent to get down to their famous tens of thousands. We are the only party that are saying we will cut migration by half.
Do you believe Paul Nuttall has managed to lodge in the minds of voters and viewers tonight the idea that UKIP still has a relevance, despite the referendum result?
No, absolutely, because the referendum we were formed for Brexit, if you like, that's true. But we've obviously gone on to other things. And immigration obviously is one of those things. When you have the display that we had tonight, which shows that the political establishment is still not listening on this issue, the reason for UKIP and the point of UKIP is very, very clear. I think that Paul has really emerged, actually, in the past week. He did the interview with Andrew Neil, he's done this one. He was very robust tonight, and in some of his comments as well, particularly about terrorism, I think he showed actually great courage in the face of basically people who would deny that there is any problem.
But the implication from a lot of people in the hall was that perhaps UKIP is unfairly targeting Muslims.
No. Look, the fact is that I have to say this is a hugely, it's a Remainer constituency. It was rather a biased audience, I think. But the fact is that there is no way we or Paul have ever done this. He said in the debate, he's not talking about the majority of Muslims, but to say that there isn't a terrorist inspired by radical Islam carrying out attacks is just to be in complete denial. And I think that, what do we do if we want to fight this if we can't even name what it is? I mean, that's the point I think he's making. And in the current climate, that takes a fair amount of courage, I think.
Okay. Peter Whittle from UKIP, thanks very much indeed for joining us. Let's get a little bit more of the debate now. Let's hear a clip involving Caroline Lucas of the Greens, and she was talking about the relevance or irrelevance of Trident.
We would stop spending money on things that we simply don't think is a good use of money. And Trident nuclear weapons would come pretty close to the top of that list. So we would scrap nuclear weapons. That would give us around 130 billion minimum over the next 30 years. We wouldn't be building HS2. We wouldn't be going ahead giving massive subsidies to Hinkley Nuclear Power Station. So first of all, the thing you do is to stop wasting money. And then you have a principle that says that those people who have more money, who have the broadest shoulders, should be giving more into our system. So essentially what we need to be doing is to be levying things like a wealth tax, looking at issues around, as I said before, corporation tax. I think it's wrong that we're going for this bargain basement tax haven. I think we should be going for a country where corporations pay their tax. But the bottom line is that this country is not a poor country. The money is in the wrong hands. There is vast inequality in this country. And if we were to sort that problem out, then we would have a much better chance of ensuring that public services are properly paid for. Take the NHS, for example. We put far less into the NHS than most other countries of a similar GDP, the similar wealth. We don't put that money in our public services, and therefore we don't have the world-class public services that we demand.
Okay, let's talk to Kirsty Blackman from the SNP. It's good to see you. Thanks for being with us. First of all, could you explain why Nicola Sturgeon wasn't here tonight?
Angus Robertson is our leader at Westminster. Nicola Sturgeon has done a number of the debates. The decision was taken that Angus would do tonight's one. He's been the real opposition to Theresa May at PMQs week in, week out. So I think it was completely reasonable that our Westminster leader was there tonight.
Okay, and how would you sum up how well he did?
I think he did really well tonight. I think his comments were clear. He was clearly putting the Tories on the back foot, having them try and justify their manifesto, which is unjustifiable. I think it was obvious that the SNP are a strong voice for Scotland, and I think Angus Robertson's voice came through clearly in that, and he was showing real leadership on there.
But how do you justify putting off balancing the books and dealing with the deficit for longer and borrowing more?
Putting off dealing with the deficit for slightly longer, not much longer. Actually, what we're looking at is we're looking at balancing the books, we're looking at returning things to their pre-crash average, we're looking at making responsible fiscal decisions, but at the same time we're not going to implement the massive amounts of austerity that the Tories have implemented. We don't believe that the poorest and most vulnerable in our society should have to, the books should not be balanced on their backs. We should be making decisions that prioritise those people who are struggling the most, not those people who are wealthiest.
But it does mean pushing the can further down the road for future generations to have to deal with.
Very marginally further down the road. We're looking at having a balanced budget in not that much longer a time than the Tories are looking at having it. So, we're looking at making responsible fiscal decisions. We're looking at our budget involves £128 billion savings, which we're going to do things like spend on the NHS, which we're going to use to make sure that pensioners are prioritised, that we don't have the austerity and welfare cuts that we've seen.
Okay. Kirsty Blackman from the SNP, thanks very much indeed for joining us. I should just remind you that we're here in the spin room here at Cambridge University, and this is where all the journalists, bloggers, the pundits, they're all putting together their interpretation of the debate tonight, and it's what you will see on tomorrow morning's front pages. You'll be reading about in the papers and also watching on television and on radio. And to my left is Sian Berry of the Green Party. Sian, it's good to see you again. Hi there. Right, how do you think it went for the Greens and for Ms Lucas?
I think Caroline was absolutely the standout performer in that debate. She was calm.
Well, you would, wouldn't you?
I mean, everyone must think so. She was calm, she was compassionate, she was credible. I think she was the only one really getting under the skin of Amber Rudd, landing blows on her for things like pointing out that it's working people who use food banks, who've been pushed into poverty by the Tories' cuts, calling her out for the arms sales to Saudi Arabia. I think it shows the kind of things the Greens will do when any party's in power. We will call people out on the important issues. We will be there to challenge whoever is there. People watching today will see what a difference a Green MP makes to the debate today, and they'll want more of that in Parliament. I think Caroline did incredibly well.
But are they wanting more of that on the doorstep? I mean, you know, the proposals for a progressive alliance, they haven't really taken off, have they?
I think, actually, if you look at the debate today, you can see a remarkable amount of agreement between different parties, a consensus emerging against the austerity policies, the anti-immigration rhetoric, and that came from the audience as well. I mean, presumably you picked a balanced audience today, and yet every time somebody made a point about fairness, equality, every time somebody made a point about welcoming our fellow citizens, about togetherness across Europe, there were wild amounts of applause. I think the country is deciding on a different direction. I think several parties represent that direction. I think the elections got very, very interesting.
Yeah, you had an opportunity to talk to millions of people tonight. Do you think you did that effectively?
I think Caroline did an incredibly good job. We have the choice in many seats to put new Green MPs in Parliament, and we have a choice in other seats to really send a message to the other parties that we want that Green point of view put forwards in Parliament. I think it's a good election for us so far, and Caroline was absolutely incredible. We all love her.
OK, Sian, thanks very much indeed. Sian Berry there from the Greens, and with me to my right here is Steffan Lewis from Plaid Cymru. Good to see you again, Steffan. A big night for the smaller parties, an opportunity to get your voice out there to millions of people. Was it heard loudly enough, do you think?
Oh, absolutely. I think, once again, Leanne Wood's character, her likability, her authenticity shone through. And once again, Plaid Cymru is the party putting Wales on the UK political landscape. And, of course, the question facing the people of Wales next week will be, do we want to keep Wales on the UK political landscape after the votes are counted? And we can only do that with a strong team of Plaid Cymru MPs. And I think this evening we've got a sense of the battleground that lies ahead politically across the UK. And unless we have Plaid Cymru there speaking up for Wales in the new Parliament after next Thursday, Wales's voice will be lost and Wales will be invisible to whichever party forms the next government.
Slightly sticky moment when a question was put to Leanne Woods about immigration and the suggestion that your party wants more immigration for a part of the country that voted comprehensively in favour of Brexit.
Well, it was a sticky moment for the presenter that hadn't quite got the manifesto passage correct. What Plaid Cymru is advocating is that we have a Welsh visa system under the new immigration system that we have for the whole of the UK, so that there are skills gaps in the Welsh economy or the Welsh public sector that we in Wales would be able to fill with work visas as part of a wider UK visa and immigration policy. It's something similar to what they have in Australia, where different states are allowed to issue a certain number of visas, and I'm glad Leanne was able to clarify that we can't have a one-size-fits-all Brexit. Don't forget that Wales is the only country in the UK that is a net exporter of goods, and if we don't have a Brexit deal that allows us to freely trade with our European partners, that'll be damaging. It'll threaten 200,000 Welsh jobs. So Leanne tonight put Welsh interests on the agenda, and Plaid Cymru is determined to keep them at the top of the agenda after the election.
All right, Steffan Lewis from Plaid Cymru, thanks very much indeed. OK, let's just take a bit of a breath with all this and get a view of an expert pollster, Joe Twyman from YouGov. Joe, it's good to see you. Interesting that Jeremy Corbyn decided he wanted to turn up tonight. Did it pay off for him?
Well, I would say that there was very little from today that probably will resonate over the next few days, which is what you want if you're coming to these debates. You want something to, in modern parlance, go viral. You want a clip or a line that will resonate, not just tonight, not just on the news tonight, but over the next few days. My impression was there wasn't really anything coming out from tonight that will do that. Jeremy Corbyn's performance, I thought, was perfectly fine. I don't think anyone actually who was present made a mistake. I think if a story does come out of it, it will be to do with the absence of Theresa May. But I don't think that any of this will have a long-lasting hit on the poll ratings for anyone, or indeed any of the parties.
So no discernible hit on the polls then. So it made sense, in her opinion, for Theresa May not to be here?
With these things, you're always calculating, okay, what's to be gained and what's to be lost. And if you're the Prime Minister, the calculation is usually that you have more to lose than you do have to gain. Everyone can turn on you. You have a record to defend that nobody else does, and so it places you in a difficult position. If I was a Conservative strategist, I would say that staying away was the right thing. You're always worried maybe you'll take a massive hit, but as I say, I don't think that will happen tonight.
Really interesting. Joe Twymers from YouGov. It's good to see you. Thanks very much indeed. I feel like a bit of a yo-yo, bouncing from left to the right, to the left to the right. Let's get a final thought here with our chief political correspondent, Vicky Young. Interesting debate, quite raucous, and they were talking over each other at times and talking across each other. Michelle Hussein had trouble keeping control a little bit of it, but what were your overall impressions?
I think it was obvious, wasn't it, that Amber Rudd was under the most pressure, and that is in some ways obvious because they have been in power for 7 years. She has a record to defend, but if you saw the attacks that she was under, about funding, about cuts, for example, to disabled payments, pensioners, police cuts, education, the NHS, talk about people going to food banks, all of that. She was under really quite sustained attack from the others, as you would expect. But I think what was obvious as well is that there is a very clear choice out there. There was her representing the Conservatives and Jeremy Corbyn, who came here and decided that he would come and debate and make his point, very quickly making it clear what he wants to do. He wants to lessen the gap between rich and poor. He said very openly, I will put up taxes, higher taxes for those who are richer because I want to give more money to the public services. Now, the comeback from Amber Rudd was to say, look, it's all very well with your magic money tree, but when you're in government, you have to make very, very difficult decisions.
All right, we'll leave it there. Vicky Young, thanks very much indeed for that. So that's it from what's been, as I say, a very large and raucous debate tonight. 7 parties taking part in the whole thing. And I should say thank you to the Cambridge Union as well for allowing us into the hall here. And hopefully we won't leave it in too much of a mess. But from this BBC election special on BBC News, many thanks to you for watching, and bye-bye.